how likely is it a small business, say a small business is under 20 employees, so even say
Mhm.
under 10 employees.
I'll go 5.
Okay. Are they really concerned or do they think nothing's going to happen to me? I'm too small?
Well, here's the thing. One of my favorite sayings: if you get hacked, you're probably too small to make the news, but you're not too small to get hacked. Size matters not for a cyber criminal. What they're doing is they're using tools. They're aggregating large numbers. Think of them as a fisherman, and most of them do not use single lures. They're using large nets to pull in all the data so that they can go ahead and hack people's systems. The biggest place that they go through is email.
Welcome to Biz Glitch number 155. It's June 3rd, 2024. Today's topic is one of my areas of special understanding. I don't want to say expertise.
No.
But I spend a lot of time learning about, reading about, staying current with cybersecurity, especially in terms of how much time do all of us lose on a daily basis. 30 seconds here blocking a spammy email, 40 seconds there hovering over an email address to see if it's a legitimate email that looks like it's legit, but then you discover these little things add up.
Indeed.
Just today at breakfast, I was saying to Linda, we have a generator for our house because we live in the country. If power goes down, so we bought a generator. And when they installed the generator, they put a device that is attached to our Wi-Fi to report back to the company that installed it. Turns out, when we needed to get it serviced a few months back, they don't even use it. So I'm going to call them up and say, I need you to disconnect it because I'm too concerned about somebody breaching into our household. We don't use, smart light bulbs and smart thermostats in our house for exactly that reason. And today's topic, therefore, is near and dear to my heart. And there are excerpts of an interview Linda did with a dude who is a rock star in this field.
I'm going to have the excerpts inserted here from the interview. His name is Carl DePrado. Because we've done 3 glitches already, we did 11, 99, and 130.
About cybersecurity.
About cybersecurity. This glitch is what measures have you taken to help prevent being hacked? And Carl, in this interview, he talks about it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when.
Yep.
Hackers don't discriminate on the size of the business. It's more about the opportunity of what they can get access to.
It is simpler than you all think it is. And again, this is one of those activities that we preach about that you're probably sitting there going, oh God, there's so much to do. But the way I like to compare, since early days on the internet, when I first went on the internet back in 2000 and started generating income from my business, I've always treated it as how would I be interacting in the real world and bring those standards to online. So if you think about it, if you park your car, do you leave your doors unlocked? Right? Do you leave your wallet on the front seat? Do you leave your expensive $3,000 antique guitar on the back seat for somebody to break a window and break in? Think of cybersecurity as those simple steps where you lock your car and you don't leave your guitar or your wallet on the seat type of thing.
That's such a great analogy.
Unfortunately, it can be quite devastating to a small business. I'll give you an example. The reason I picked it 5 was one of my favorite stories that kind of brings it home. I have a partner out of Detroit. He was called in for a record store. When I mean records, I mean the old vinyl records. They still sell them. They're collectible. And what happened was these cyber criminals got into their systems, a 5-person firm, little retail store, and they sat there for 6 months monitoring their emails. They started to learn their business, and they figured out the busiest day of the year for them. And on the busiest day of the year, they unfortunately proceeded to give them a ransom attack. For those of you who don't know what a ransom attack is, it means that they put software inside of all of their computers and they shut those computers down. They encrypted them. They made them impossible to get the data out of. And then they proceeded to do a ransom. They said, we want $45,000. They figured out how, based on the transactions, they figured out how much money they could afford to pay on this. The owner of the company actually had purchased cyber insurance, but what he did was he really didn't figure out what type of cyber insurance he got. And so unfortunately what happened was the ransom is $45,000. I have a $150,000 policy. And the insurance company at that point said, well, we're not going to pay that out unless you do what we call a breach analysis. Now, breach analysis are pretty expensive. They require an attorney to be part of it. There's what they call a cyber breach coach, which is somebody like myself who also has a law degree on top of them. These normally run around $50,000, and they only gave them $5,000 up front. So they ended up having to take a short-term loan for $90,000, first part to pay up the difference for the breach analysis, and second to pay the cyber criminals to get the data back. And you would have said, oh, well, you know what? My data wasn't worth anything. I could have just wiped out my data. Well, you really do want to have somebody go in and look in your systems if you're breached. And the reason for that is, even if you clean up everything, or you think you've cleaned it up, you don't know how they came in. So it's sort of like, you're wiping up the mess out of a flood and you don't know why your basement flooded. It's going to flood again. They were lucky. They were down, believe it or not, for 3 months.
We hope that you come away with some points to take an extra hour a month to say, you know what, it's not something I've not even looked into. Maybe I need to explore deeper where I might be missing the mark on these protections.
The average, which was presented by the National Archives last year, they did a report, 93% of businesses that lose their data for 10 or more days file for bankruptcy. So, and 50% do it right there on the spot. Well, think about it. We're all business people. How long do you function without your cell phone?
Yeah.
How long do you function without your computer? These are the things you communicate with. There's another story I'll take. I'll go on the other side of this, of how bad it can be, regardless of how much information, how much data you have. You can still go on their website today. Lincoln College out of Illinois. Now, Lincoln College was Abraham Lincoln's namesake university. It was sort of like Clemson in Illinois. And what they did first was they helped the African-American community. They started to give them degrees. This has been around for 156 years. They survived World War I, World War II, the Spanish flu, fires. I mean, devastating things. And 2019, they had their best year on record. Attendance was up through the roof. 2020, they get hacked. Again, the same things happen. They get shut down. Unfortunately, they did not survive. If you go on their website, they talk about this. They still leave the webpage open, but they couldn't get admissions in. They couldn't do anything. They were down for over 6 months. First of all, when you think about a college and how much it truly helps the community, and to be shut out, it's not just all those kids that put in all their time, employees and everything. It's the whole community gets messed up. And this is one of the reasons I am as passionate as I am about cybersecurity. The ones that are more sophisticated, the ones that do the most damage, what they do is they spend a little time with the attack. They don't let you know that in your systems. They just sit there. And what they start to do is read all the stuff that's coming in. And they learn your business. They learn you. They gather a dossier. It's just like, think of it like marketing. Like, what does marketing do? Marketing's, when you're out there, you're trying to find your ideal customer. They're trying to find their ideal victim. And they start to learn what their patterns are. They start to learn. And they have a whole team. When you sit there and you say, well, my business won't be, but how much money do you have in your bank account? How much do you have in your 401k? How much do you have in your house? It's not unreasonable or unrealistic that there's something called title theft, where somebody can actually steal the title of a house underneath you. People work and spend their whole lives building up this stuff, and it can be quite devastating to see on the other end what happens. And unfortunately, when you're the victim of identity theft, I just was talking to another agent today about one of his clients, and he said, well, what can I do? And I said, well, there's a few things, but not a lot, not as much as you'd like. You're never going to be like where they don't have your data, because currently you cannot change your social security number.
This is another glitch, just like yesterday's glitch about burnout, where I thought about it before the project launched and moved it up sooner in the year. This is the exact same thing, because when this was recorded, it wasn't even June yet, this particular interview. Last year, because June 9th, 2023, a new FTC rule went into place. The Federal Trade Commission had a safeguard rule that they put in place. Let's get into the meaty topic that you had on the top of your list, FTC safeguard rule. Now, when you sent that to me, I was like, do small businesses really have to know about this? I mean, what does it really mean?
The Federal Trade Commission Safeguard Rule, FTC for Federal Trade Commission, is a rule that's been in effect since 2003, but it basically dealt with banks, lending institutions. And what that is that they are required to safeguard consumer data, meaning social security numbers, not what we call non-published financial information, non-public. What they've realized as government has grown up in this technology age, just like when we had in the 1930s, when people didn't really understand the stock market, and we basically had a crash, and all of a sudden we started throwing regulations in to start protecting the consumer market. The same things are coming into place with data, and when people hand that over to businesses so that they can get credit issued for them. What the government realized, and it's not really just the banks now that have the credit. Think about when you go to buy a cell phone, you have to give your social security number. So that's using that as an organization, they fall under that particular, they're collecting that data. They're acting as a bank with their financing. Same thing for auto dealerships. They are now considered non-banking financial institutions. accountants because they're doing tax preparation, bookkeepers who do tax preparation. Again, they fall under non-banking financial institutions. If you're a contractor and you're financing, let's say, a pool or a deck for a client, and you're facilitating that and you're benefiting from that, you are now falling under the safeguard rules. You have a responsibility to that data. Now, even if you don't hold it, you may have the indirect responsibility of vetting the contractor who you're getting that stuff from. So let's say your classic story indirectly was a real estate agent who recommended, a broker who recommended an attorney, and the attorney basically was using a public Gmail account. His account got hacked. It was like $800,000 that was lost. Well, guess what? The client not only sued the attorney, but he also went after the real estate broker because they recommended it. So that's what you're starting to see. It's like everything else. Liability moves out. I have kids. My kid does something stupid. It doesn't rest with just my kid. It rests with me. And that's what, as business owners, our liabilities extend far beyond us, especially when we have employees. I'm not an attorney, but this is the rules of the land I live in. So if you're a business that's financing or having anything to do outside of like somebody running a newspaper stand and giving you a couple quarters for a paper, anything that touches that data collection is now going to fall under there. The fines are pretty large. On the high end, you can be looking at $46,000 per day per offense. The FTC just went after GoodRx and got a claim for $1.5 million. Because, and now GoodRx was in the medical space. They weren't under quote unquote the trade spot, but what they were doing was they were selling people's medical records as marketing data. And the FTC said we're going to take that over and we're going to fine. One of the things the FTC does, the way that they fund themselves, is through fines. You're not going to see them knocking on your door. We're not going to do an on-the-spot audit. But what's going to happen, and what you're going to see is as companies get breached and as they're going through all of these things and they're filing their claims, just like you file, for a fire, they're going to be like the fire marshal coming through saying, okay, did you have all your ducks in a row? Did you do all of and there's basically like 9 different points that you have to do on the FTC safeguards. A few of them you don't have to if you're below a certain threshold. But you better be careful about what your threshold is. One of the rules they have is 5,000 records. And you're like, well, I don't have 5,000 clients. Well, every document that you produce with a social security number, one of these things becomes a record. So you could have one client who you've had for 20 years that you're filing taxes. That's 20. Let's say that it's just them, and that's 20 records. They have a wife. That's 40 records. They have a business. That's 60 records. They have employees underneath. It just grows beyond what you can think of very quickly. For a small accounting firm, it's not unrealistic to have over 5,000 records in one place.
The goal and actionable item is to review previous glitches that we've done. Where is your encrypted data? Do you have data encrypted? Do you have your client information protected? And also to watch the interview besides the excerpts. You can click on that in the video while you're watching.
Entire interview.
And watch the entire interview.
Definitely a home run.
Yeah.
Carl's very informative interview.
Very generous with his information to make sure people are protected.
So thanks for tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow.